All right.
And I'm going to first tell you who was nice out there and who wasn't.
Okay. Like Cottonmouth.
Do you have a bottle of water? Do you need water?
I'm fine. Thank you. All right. All right. Take a picture from the back of the room. Or front, yeah.
That's fine. Can we have you look forward?
It's going to be a busier day than you expected.
Yeah, it's a little crazy. I know I just had to hide in Drew's room for a second and talk to my husband.
How's that?
Is your light on?
That's no good now, or what? Is it worse? Oh, it's still there. See the light?
Is your light on?
No. It's this light now. If I shoot this one, it'll be left.
Come on, we need all the good light. I'm not a spring chicken anymore. More light, the better.
Yeah, we're going to hit another light.
Okay, good. Thank you.
If they need a reflector, they can always use my skin.
So you come closer because we need to bounce the light in. Let's go. Oh.
And McIntyre, it does have, you're right, you would be a good
Yes.
I know. Yeah.
Yes.
I've seen guys have white balance camera off my face.
Hold on. I'm going to copy people.
Is everyone ready?
Anybody? Everyone okay?
Yeah.
Everybody good?
All right, everybody rolling?
So,
Wait, hold on. I'm going to roll
you can do
too.
your thing, yeah?
Very nice.
Okay, hold on. Okay.
Let us know when you start.
Leeann, thank you for having us. Maybe before even getting into your story, which you've shared online as the article, your emotions right now, dealing with all of this, what's going through your head?
I want to lock myself in a room. No, actually, I'd like to go home and hug my kids, maybe, and yeah, hug my husband.
Your emotions with sharing this.
You know, I talked to a couple of my girlfriends who came out with their stories, and they're like, you're going to feel better after. I don't know that I'm there yet. I'm still a little, I think I'm still working my way through that, I think, honestly. This morning, you know, I went to bed last night. I was a little nervous knowing, you know, I think it's like maybe getting ready for a ball game or getting ready for, you know, a match or a big day, or whatever you do. You know, if you're getting ready for a big game or something, you're nervous and anticipation, and then it came, and you know, you get the story out, and then sort of the barrage starts happening. My phone started ringing. I started getting emails. My friends started hearing the story and started appearing on places. You know, we started showing up on CNN on our monitors, and you know, it's a little overwhelming, maybe, you know, at the same time as overwhelming is a good word, I guess, maybe. You know, I don't know. I've thought about it for so long. You know, you think you know what you're going to feel. You know, maybe I'm like, oh, when I come out and tell the world, maybe I'm going to be happy about it, or I'm going to be like, yeah, I'm going to put it to them or whatever. And you know, it's not even that feeling. You know, it's not like I'm happy about it. You know, it's not like, yeah, he's going to get what he deserves or anything. I mean, it's not even like that at all. You know, it's just a I don't know. I don't even know. Like I said, I think I'm still working through the emotion of it all. You know, it's still I still have a pit in my stomach. You know, I still kind of have that I don't know whether to cry. You know, I don't know whether I think I need a hug. Yeah, you know, I think I need a moment to myself. You know, I don't know. It's just a.
Would you be okay with taking us through what
Yeah. You know, I think everybody, you know, that's in the entertainment business, or anybody in Hollywood or what have you, they have something that they like to put their time and their efforts into, right? Or mine just happens to be I like to support the troops. You know, my father served in Vietnam. My husband's in the Air Force. He's a pilot. And my dad was in Vietnam when he was a young man. He was a teenager when he got the draft notice. And he had a USO tour with Bob Hope and Raquel Welch when he was in Vietnam. And so I heard this story, you know, when I was a young girl. And I always thought, wow, that's really cool. So when I first came up in the entertainment business, and I was first asked if I would like to go do a USO tour, I thought, oh man, that'd be really cool, you know, and sort of pick up that mantle and be like, maybe I could be somebody's Raquel Welch, you know. And so I started doing USO tours and visiting wounded warriors and doing all of that. And of course that sort of corresponded with, you know, the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. And I started doing that, and so by the time 2006 came around, I was on my 9th USO tour, so 8 tours going into the Middle East. And this particular tour, we were traveling with the Sergeant Major of the Army and the USO, and, excuse me, let me get some water. And Al Franken was on our tour. And then we had some country music artists and a couple Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. And we kind of do it's like a variety show. And because you know, I don't sing or dance, I'm a host. So I MC the shows, and you sort of introduce all the acts. I go out there and I talk about my experiences and why I'm there, and, you know, my past tours and why I'm thankful. And my dad had, you know, a USO show, and that particular year, since there was Al Franken too, and he doesn't sing or dance, he sort of co-emceed the show. But because he was a comedian and actor and a writer, and people knew him from SNL, he came and wrote some skits, and he would do skits in between some of the acts. And I'd never met him before, but he had come. You know, we all knew who we were going on tour with beforehand, let's say that. So I'd never met him before. We met up in D.C. to travel over for this tour. He had written a script, a little skit, I guess, if you will, with me in mind. And so when we met up, he's like, hey, so I've written a little script. If you want to do it with me, we can, you know, you want to play along. So I was like, yeah, sure, okay, that's fine. And so when I finally got the script a couple days into it, you know, it was the typical, you know, if you think about it, our military is comprised mostly of young, very young, early 20s males. And he wrote this very, you know, tongue-in-cheek, very, it was full of sexual innuendos, you know, probably a 2-minute long skit. I don't even remember all those details. It was just, you can see you can find some video online. You know, everything was very, very tongue-in-cheek, you know, I'd say a line and he'd say a line, and it was all, you know, double entendres and stuff like that. And there was a scene where he would kiss me. But of course, you know, I mean, in his mind, I'm sure he was going to kiss me. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, he's never going to kiss me. So that was that. Well, before we got to the first show, because a couple days in country, you just meet people, and then we have the first show in Kuwait is where we were for the first show. We had a little backstage area, and they had it sort of cordoned off. And we were backstage alone because he's like, okay, we're going to get ready. And then they sort of introduce us. We come through a little backstage door, and then we open up into the crowd on the stage. And the backstage area was actually part of the gym, because that's just sort of how these makeshift places are on these bases. So this little gym, we had this one little corner, kind of like this, with these little curtains, and they just sort of cordoned off this little area. So it was just me and Al backstage, and he had his little props for the rest of his show, for the rest of his little skits by himself. And he's like, well, we need to practice the kissing scene. And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. And I just sort of blew him off, because I didn't, like, we don't need to practice the kissing scene. It's just a quick little thing, you know. And then he persisted, and he's like, no, we really need to practice the kissing scene. And like, okay, Al, you just turn your head right, I'll turn my head right, we got this, you know, whatever. And he kept persisting, and I'm like, Al, this isn't SNL. We're not really going to kiss, so we don't really have to practice. And he just kept persisting, and it just reminded me of like the Harvey Weinstein tape that you heard the girl when she was wired up for the the NYPD, and he's just persistent and badgering and just relentless, you know. And so I was just like, okay, fine, just so he would shut up, you know. And he just sort of came at me, and we did the line, and he came at me, and before you even know it, I mean, you kind of get close, and he just put his hand on the back of my head, and he mashed his face against, I mean, it happened so fast, and he just mashed his lips against my face, and he stuck his tongue in my mouth so fast. And all I can remember is that his lips were really wet, and it was slimy. In my mind, I called him fish lips the rest of the trip, because that's just what it reminded me of. I don't know why. And he stuck his tongue down my mouth, and I remember I pushed him off with my hands, and I just remember I almost punched him, so, because every time I see him now, like, my hands clench into fists, and I'm sure that's probably why. And I said, if you ever do that to me again, I'm not going to be so nice about it the second time. And I just walked out away from him, and I walked out, and I just wanted to find a bathroom, and I just wanted to rinse my mouth out, because I was just disgusted, you know. It was just one of those, I don't know, I was violated. I just felt like, you know, he betrayed my trust, and obviously that is not what I wanted, and I felt like he wrote that just to get that piece in, because he knew he wasn't going to get it on stage, and that was why he was badgering me to do it then when we were alone, because that's what he wanted. And then, you know, 5 minutes later, we had to go out on stage, and I always joke, I've never been an actress, so people always think when you're in Hollywood, I was a model, and then I was a television host, and people are like, oh, you're an actress. I've never been an actress. That's a whole different set of talent, and I don't act. And I had to be an actress, you know. I had to go out on stage with this guy who just did this to me 5 minutes before, and act like he's my best friend, and Al Franken, ladies and gentlemen, and this is the greatest thing ever, and do our lines, and trust me, he didn't even get close to my face when we had to come in for the kissing scene. And it's funny, because when this whole Harvey Weinstein thing came out in the last like 2 weeks, when I was deciding, is this the time I tell my story? And I was just looking online and trying to find videos, and you know, recalling everything that happened in my mind from this time 10 years ago, 11 years ago. And I found a blog of a soldier who was at one of our shows in Afghanistan or Iraq. And he just talks about his experience at the show, just as a guy in the audience. And he said, you know, Al Franken and Leeann Tweeden were great co-MCs, and Al told a couple of jokes. And then Al goes in for a kiss or more from Leeann and fails. And I just thought, yeah, that's exactly what happens. And he failed every time, because that's what happens on stage. And, you know, I thought it would be, the joke would always have been, to me, the funny part was, it would have been like Al would have, you know, in my mind, Al would have just come in for a kiss, and I would have turned my face, or I would have put my hand on his mouth, and that would have been the funny part, right? That would have been like this old guy coming in for the kiss from the hot girl or whatever. You know, the skit would have been to these young troops, and it would have been funny, because it was comedy, right? Obviously, it turned out completely different, but, you know, so I had to act my way through the rest of the shows for the next 2 weeks, 10 days, 2 weeks. And I just made sure I was never alone with him again. I I didn't tell the Sergeant Major of the Army what happened. I didn't tell our USO rep, because what was I going to do? Be the troublemaker? Be like, okay, I'm going to MC every part of the show for the hour except the 10 minutes I'm on stage with Al? You know, I just sucked it up. I'm a strong girl. I'm a sportscaster, so I deal with guys every day. I'm just going to fake it and act like an actress and do this part with him and then not talk to him for the rest of the tour. I mean, it was a big tour with a lot of people. I didn't socialize with him. I didn't talk to him for the rest of the tour. I made sure I was never alone with him again. I mean, we're in tight quarters, but there were a lot of people around, so I just made sure I was never alone with him again. And so I didn't have to deal with him in that respect again, other than when we were on stage. And then, little petty things that I had to deal with, just snide comments. We would do autograph sessions after the shows. Of course, they would set up tables. And because there would be sometimes thousands of troops at an event, and we would only have so much time. So there would be long tables for all the, the country music artists and the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, who were very popular, by the way. And then instead of like trying to have a single file line of 1,000 guys trying to come down and get everybody's autograph, they would open it up to where everybody, if you wanted somebody's certain autograph and there was only time for people to wait in one line, they would just open it up to where people could just stand in the line that they would want instead of filing it through like this. So sometimes there would be, honest to God, nobody in Al Franken's line. So people would line up. The girls would have long lines. Some of the country music artist guys would have long lines. So I would always be sat next to Al because that's just how they always set it up. And so I would always sort of have my back to him and whatever, and I'd be sitting next to the other people. And we'd have lines, we would sign autographs. And I mean, it was just hours of signing and taking pictures with troops. And one time he didn't have people in his line, and I would see things out of the corner of my eye, and I'd see, like a hand and a picture. One of my autograph pictures go like this, and and I would look over one time, and, one time I would just see, and a picture would come back. It would be, my face with devil horns and the devil tail and the pitchfork and the goatee. And, these are the things I'm dealing with, right? Like, he draws me as the devil. I'm like, okay, childish, belittling, whatever. It's just like, that's 2 weeks of this is what I'm getting at. Sorry. And so whatever. So I make it through the 2 weeks of that. And then we're on our way home. We leave, pretty sure it's Bagram Air Base. We're leaving out of Afghanistan. And every time you take off from a base when you're in the middle of combat, you always wear a Kevlar helmet and a flak vest. Because when you leave from in the middle of a war zone, you do wear your gear, because small arms fire or even an RPG like a rocket-propelled grenade can pierce the armor or pierce the skin of an airplane. And so a lot of times you either sit on Kevlar or you wear it because you can be shot at through a plane. So you're wearing it as you take off until you get high enough altitude where you're out of that reach, and then you can take it off. So I'm wearing it. I fall asleep because I can fall asleep usually before the plane even takes off. So I'm sleeping up against the side of the plane. And in the photo, if you see the photo, beside me is Mark Wills, a country singer. He's also asleep. So I'm sleeping, which anybody that knows me, I sleep anywhere, anytime. So I'm asleep. And there are photographers on the trip, and I'm pretty sure it was probably the photographer of the tour that took the picture. But they give you CDs as you leave that have, behind-the-scenes photos of you on the entire tour that they give you when you leave. And I get this, and I open it up when I get home. I probably opened it the next day. And it was a photo of Al doing his, this on my breast, like looking at the camera, just kind of smirking and smiling, like, hey, look at me. And I took that as the, the final, like, like I got the last laugh. I mean, he knew I wouldn't see it until I got home and, was away from everybody else. And like I said, the to know it in the context of the entire trip and what happened in the entire 2 weeks is telling to me, and just the fact that he just thought he could get away with it, and that it was okay, and that it was funny, and I knew all these years later that, oh well, I thought it was going to be funny. I thought, oh, the comedian, I thought it was going to be I thought it was a joke. I was in bad taste, or I thought it was going to be funny, and I guess it wasn't, or it was poor taste, or whatever. I mean, nothing like that is ever funny. I mean, is it funny if he does that to your sister or your daughter or your wife? I mean, that's just all of those things. But like I said, in context of already assaulting me backstage and all the little petty things he was doing to belittle me and how he treated me, and sort of, in succession, and then it ended with that, and then how I was left to feel like, without being able to say whatever I needed to say to his face, that's how I'm like, oh, great, while I was sleeping you do that to me, and then I can't even say anything to him. So that's just sort of how it all happened and how it finished.
So when he says in a statement, and he's issued 2 statements, it says, 1, I apologize. 2, I respect women. 3, I don't remember the statement.
Wait, hold on. So I've only seen the first one. Can you read the second and third ones to me?
Well, he says, I respect women. I don't respect men who don't. The fact that my own actions have given people a good reason to doubt that makes me feel ashamed. He's also asked for, as has Mitch McConnell, an investigation. So, 1, do you accept his apology? And 2, what do you think should happen after an investigation?
I mean, there's no reason why I shouldn't accept his apology. I mean, if that's, sure. I wasn't, I didn't come out to, I wasn't looking for anything, you know what I mean? And people are like, well, what were you expecting from him? What did you expect from him? If he wanted to apologize, great. I mean, look, this has happened, this has been going on this happened 11 years ago. I saw him a couple years after that with my husband at a USO gala, and he walked up to me and found me in a room and said hello to me, and I was very cold to him, and I turned around. He found me and with my back to him and said hello, and I was like, hi, Al. And I turned around and walked away from him. My husband even said to me last night, he's like, as I recall, Leeann, you left me standing there with Al because you said hello and then turned your back on him and walked away and left me standing there with him. And I'm like, yeah, because I wasn't going to talk to him. So my husband said, hello, Al. But no, he had a chance to apologize to me then, because he knew exactly what he did to me then, and that picture was out there. So he had a chance to apologize to me. So I wasn't holding my breath. I'd have been long dead by then. So the apology, sure, I accept it. Yes. I mean, people make mistakes, and of course he knew he made a mistake. So yes, I do accept that apology. The ethics investigation, if that's what Mitch McConnell wants to do, that's on them. I'm not calling for that. If that's what he wants to do, okay, that's up to them. I'm not demanding that. I'm not demanding any of that. I just don't want this. To me, it's more about. This is happening in Hollywood. I think we live in a bubble. I live in a bubble. I've worked in the entertainment business, sports, radio, television, commercials, movies for over 20 years. And I think because all of this is happening here, I mean, this has, with Al now in the Senate. So this is kind of Hollywood and kind of politics, but it's sort of the same sort of stage. It's just sort of parallel. But this is happening in Middle America. This is happening for women that work at Chili's. This is happening for women who work in an office building somewhere in Iowa and Kansas and Florida. I mean, this is happening to women who have no power and no say to speak up. You know what I mean? And this is, I think the tide is turning. And what about all the women who don't have microphones and have a voice and can say something, and then it's everywhere on the news? What about the women who get assaulted every day and are afraid to speak out? I mean, look, I was afraid to speak out 11 years ago. I wanted to say something, and there were people around me who said, oh my God, you will get annihilated and you will never work in this town again. And I was afraid of that. I really was afraid of that. I was working at the Best Damn Sports Show. I was working at Fox Sports. I mean, I had a good career, and I thought, you know what, if I come out and speak out then, I probably would get fired or would just get phased out. And I was afraid of that, you know, and I'm not afraid of that anymore. I mean, could it still happen? Sure, possibly, but you know, I'm a lot more secure and you know, myself, my career at this age now, and I really do think the tide has turned. And really, I'm doing it now because it's different. There's strength in numbers. Congresswoman Jackie Spear has come out, and she's talking about it now. And when she said she had that experience when she was in her 20s as a congressional aide and came out and said her chief of staff stopped her in an office and grabbed her face and kissed her and stuck his tongue in her mouth. And we had her on our air, and she said that to us while we were interviewing her on McIntyre in the Morning, the show that I'm the news anchor on. And I looked at Doug and I went, I kind of mouthed, I'm like, that was Al Franken to me. And I said, I think that was my catalyst to sort of go, you know, if I'm going to tell my story, now is the time. 2017 is not 2006. You know, it's just a different time. And maybe I can be somebody's Jackie Spear and they can tell their story in real time and not wait. I mean, why do you think so many people are coming out now that have stories that are decades old?
You think he should step down?
You know, people make mistakes. I mean, I'm not calling for him to step down. You know, that's not my place to say that. You know, I mean, if there are other people that come out and say he's done this, I mean, I don't know. I mean, if I'm the only one that's come out and said Senator Franken's done something to me, but if there are other women that have come out, I haven't returned a phone call. I've gotten a phone call from a woman that I've only gotten a message and that said that something similar has happened to her, and I haven't returned it yet. So that's to be determined. But you know, I don't know. That's not my call. I don't know. But I don't. You know, I'm not saying that.
You know, Leeann's been here since 3:30 this morning. If we still need a fast one-on-one, we can do it standing up there if we can kind of move it along. But I think this was probably maybe more than anyone thought. It's unbelievable what you've done.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Really amazing. So if we need to do that, let's do it and get going, and
Give me the mic, John.
we're good to go. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you for talking.
Bring the whole thing,
Thank you again for the time.